Talk shoes. Recorded live.
Hello and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. This week we continue our series of horror movies on Netflix with Roman Polanski's 1999 supernatural thriller, The Ninth Gate, starring Johnny Depp and Frank Langella and Lena Olin. Bear in mind that if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have. So warning, spoilers ahead. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, writer of the Ben 10 comic series from IDW, coming soon in trade paperback. With me from Austin is Drew Edwards, writer of the long-running comic Halloween Man, now from Monsterverse Comics, and a contributing writer to Rockabilly Online and Monsterverse's Tales from the Grave. Say hello, Drew.
Hello.
Hello. Also in Austin, Tony Salvaggio, writer of the Victorian mech comic Clockworks from Humanoids and Psycom, the manga from Bright Stuff and Tokyopop, lead singer of the band Deserts of Mars. Say hello, Tony.
Howdy.
And also in Denver with color commentary, host of the mom-oriented podcast Pod Moms, as always, attorney Julia Guzman. Say hello.
Bonsoir.
Bonsoir. Okay. More to the point, this is not just a series of horror movies on Netflix, but it's a series where each week one of us chooses a movie and everyone else has to watch it. We did this because we all had Netflix accounts and we were like, this would be a good way to lead people to movies that they can find really quickly, because sometimes we've had to just pass bootlegs around. We couldn't even, there were movies that barely existed anymore.
No, we would never do that.
Right. Everything that passes through my hands, it becomes instantly licensed. All right. Anyway, so this is different from how we normally do it. This week's movie from Netflix is chosen by Julia. So Julia has foisted The Ninth Gate upon us. So The Ninth Gate, according to Wikipedia, is a 1999 French-Spanish-American thriller directed, produced, and co-written by Roman Polanski. The film is loosely based on Arturo Pérez Reverte's 1993 novel, The Club Dumas. The plot involves the search for a rare ancient book that purportedly contains the secret to magically summoning the devil himself. So, The Ninth Gate. Now, I confess I had never seen this movie. Let's go around and get some short first impressions. Julia, you can have a slightly longer first impression because you got to explain to us why you chose this movie to foist upon us, unless your answer is down to one sentence, in which case... in case you don't get that much more time. So, Julia, first impressions, The Ninth Gate.
Okay, I would like to say that the reason I chose the movie was because it had Frank Langella, and it was Roman Polanski, and it's filmed all over Europe, and it's got Lena Olin. But really, the fact is that I chose it because it has Johnny Depp, and I hadn't seen it. And I have to watch all the Johnny Depp movies. I'm very happy that we watched it for all those reasons. I think it's an interesting film. I think it's a lot of great things. It moves very slowly and is very long. But, it's an interesting choice. And I'm curious to know actually if you guys think it even qualifies as a horror movie, because until the end, there's really nothing particularly horror, except for the theme, which is basically the Satan, the book by, the books that have been co-written with Satan. Other than that, it's not really all that horrific or horrific, whatever the word is. So I'm curious if you guys think it qualifies as horror. But I enjoyed it. I'm really glad we watched it, and I think it's a lot of fun.
All right. Tony, first impressions? Nice.
I like the movie. I think I'd rented it on VHS at one point. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'd rented it, or maybe I saw it on cable when I had cable. It's one of those, it's kind of like, it doesn't leave a lasting impression, unfortunately, but I think it does a lot of really cool things. I like the characters. I like this kind of library Indiana Jones kind of character.
Yes. Yeah.
It's got shades of what I like about Constantine, even though it doesn't have as much to do with Constantine. It has a little bit of that flavor. So yeah, I don't mean it to be an insult to anyone who made the movie. It's just kind of breezy. It may or may not stick with you, but it's entertaining, and not everything has to win an Academy Award. I was entertained by it, and I remembered liking it well enough when I saw it, and it was cool to see it again. I think there's some really strong performances throughout. I think that at parts I was like, man, why isn't Johnny Depp Doctor Strange?
Yeah.
Because of the way he did his hair and stuff. I was like, hey, that would work. But yeah, I enjoyed it actually, and I didn't even, everybody's talking about how long it is. I guess I didn't think it didn't feel super long to me,
right.
Until like kind of in the third act. I guess there's kind of a couple of endings, but I didn't feel like, oh man, when is this ever going to be over? It clips along.
We actually, to be sure, we watched it like as 2-hour-long episodes. At least that's how I do. Which a lot of times with a 2-hour movie, I'll just literally watch an hour at a time and then come back, which maybe isn't fair to the film.
It's not that 2 hours is too long. It just moves. It felt like it moved pretty slowly to me. But again, I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. I think it was just that it was a deliberate choice.
So Drew,
yeah, I actually like the pacing, and I like the discovery. Admittedly, I haven't seen like the Dan Brown adaptations, but to me, like this is what, when I hear about them or read about them, like this is what I kind of wish it was.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's a dude
this is
like
very
investigating,
much
I think it's horror in the same way that for example, Rosemary's Baby takes a long time to get to where it's going, and it's still horror. So I think, and there's a lot of these kind of like movies that were done in the same. I mean, they kind of stopped in the early '90s, and so this one kind of picked up that mantle. I think it feels kind of early to mid '90s in some ways. I think it's kind of one of those things where it has that kind of feel of like, I don't know, it's hard to describe, but I really enjoyed how it kind of plays out, that discovery aspect of it.
That's outstanding. And we're going to dip into all of those things in a second, actually. Drew, opening thoughts?
Well, I had actually seen this in the theater when it first came out, but I must confess I didn't remember a single thing about it other than, it was an occult, kind of an occult detective story with Johnny Depp in it. I enjoyed it. I think it's very stylish. There's a lot of great acting. There's a lot of wonderful shots and ideas in this movie. But I have to say, as much as there are times where it's enthralling, there are plenty of moments where this movie, I just wanted to throw my hands up and go, oh, just get on with it, because it's over 2 hours long. It feels like it's 4 hours. They should have cut about 20 minutes out of the movie. And I have to say, I do find the ending of the movie incredibly frustrating because it just sort of stops like they ran out of screenplay.
No kidding. Amen to that.
So yeah. I agree. I'm going to skip my first impression. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I didn't have a problem with that. We can get into that later. When we talk about the ending, I didn't have a problem, and I'll tell you why. But
I do want to say I do find this fascinating that this is a Polanski film, because it does sort of both remind me of Chinatown and Rosemary's Baby. It could almost be their sort of spiritual sequels. But, it also reminds me of other films kind of in this occult detective genre, like Angel Heart. It's definitely...
Yes. Really good point. Yes.
Yeah. Is this a horror film? Yes, but it's also kind of like a sub-genre to me, which I would say are sort of horror noir. And that's what I would call this.
Or you could we could make up a term. It's something like supernatural noir or what have you. And the fact is, in lieu of my first impressions, instead I'll give sort of a slightly better synopsis than I gave before. This is in a way a lot like movies like Cat People, where it's all about the mood and somebody searching for answers and you may not get them. Or if you can imagine Indiana Jones. I think you said it right, Tony. If Indiana Jones was a book collector and sort of lackadaisically moved from plot point to plot point, the basic concept is this: Johnny Depp, who we'll get to in a second. Johnny Depp is a rare book acquirer, really. He's a guy who goes and gets them and deals them and skims money off the top by buying and selling extremely rare
Somebody
books.
called him a book detective in the movie.
Yeah, and he's extremely knowledgeable about books. And so we meet him, and so what happens is he gets hired by a specialist in occult books, which is Frank Langella, a lecturer who has one of the most pristine and amazing cult book collections in the world. Frank Langella has a book that supposedly can summon the devil, but it's clear that he's tried it and he hasn't been able to summon the devil, so he thinks this is a forgery. And he says, hey, Johnny Depp, I'm going to give you a giant check to go around the world and find these 2 other copies I know are out there and compare them and figure out which is the right one and do what you got to do to get your hands on the right one. And because and it's clear, one presumes that he wants to summon the devil. And that's what the movie's about. He goes from place to place. He meets really, really strange Eurotrash people who live in giant mansions and say cryptic things to him. And we follow him as he spends a lot of time talking books and studying these books, and the tension builds as he moves his way through his investigation of which one of the books is correct, and he's followed by numerous people. I won't get into it much more because we're going to go through sort of the characters in a second. But what I wanted to talk about right away, we talked a little bit about, is this a horror movie? And let's talk about that now in terms of the tone of the film, which really means, Polanski and is this horror? And I'll just throw this out, and then one of you can respond to this. But one thing I really like about this movie is as Johnny Depp is investigating and going from place to place, there is just increasing absurdity that he sees. He'll meet the craziest people. There's one point where he goes and he's getting information from these 2 Italian cabinet makers or whatever they are in Italy, and they're these twin walrus mustached guys.
That's the thing I wanted to tell you guys, that actually is one actor. It's not 2
really?
people. Yes, I just read that and I was like, that's so awesome.
That's amazing. Yeah, and so there's this amazing special effect where this one actor plays. Yeah,
it says Roman Polanski used a motion capture rig to use the same actor twice.
Oh,
and he also the same guy plays the 2 workmen that are cleaning out the bookstore at the end.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, all right.
Hey, that's a cool trick, then.
That was wonderful. Yeah, that was a special effect. That's a good example of when a special effect doesn't look like a special effect. I completely believe that this is just a twin Spaniards. But okay, they're strange, all right. And Johnny Depp gets information from them, and then what happens? He goes back to his hotel. Later on, he's interviewing somebody else. He is knocked unconscious. Somebody's murdered. The place is set on fire. He has to run for his life and hope not to get noticed and accused of murder. And what does he do after that? He just goes back to his hotel and knocks around, lights a cigarette. I mean, and
you know what? It never becomes a thing. The actually, he never does get arrested, which I kind of expect. That's part of the thing about the movie moving slowly is you kind of think he should get arrested at some point for these murders because he shows up at both of these the houses of the owners of these books, and they both get murdered.
Everyone who has the misfortune to be interviewed by this guy investigating these books also happens to wind up dead.
That's right when he's been there, like at the time or right before, right after, right before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's so strange, and this is what I wanted to ask you guys about, that it's almost comedy. I mean, it's
I mean, it's kind of dark comedy. It's also like I said, like I kind of look at it in the same way as all the investigative stuff that's in, like The Omen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Except it's a little bit more kind of adventure-y, and that's why, I made the kind of the Indiana Jones references. Or like I said, like something about it feels like when I read Constantine, even though they're really different.
Explain a little bit about Constantine then, for those of us.
Well, Constantine is, a guy was an unbeliever, had a supernatural really glossing over it, had a supernatural experience.
This is a comic character patterned
supernatural.
after Sting, right?
Yeah. And he's, a supernatural investigator, and then he meets demons and everything like that. But the way that he does investigations, I'm sure there's plenty of comics fans who would probably disagree with me in a major way. But something about it had that feeling, or that kind of going from place to place, the flow of things. Because to me, it's like kind of a breezy movie, even though it doesn't sound like it's a Drew, but it just kind of flows,
Yeah.
And I think that's part of why we don't
I definitely did not feel that way.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, it just kind of went, even though it goes a lot of places, or maybe that's where it feels overlong, but it, at the end of the day, I was like, wow, it just kind of, and that's probably partially why it doesn't leave a lasting impression on most people.
The thing that makes
it just kind of clips, Yeah.
Well, the thing that makes me feel it's long is, or it's not that it's long, but it's slow, is things like, for example, when he's on the payphone, and it's like he's trying to get through to Frank Langella's character, and it's like it takes like 5 minutes just for him to get through to Frank Langella, and it basically takes place in real time, kind of,
right.
At that point. And I just think, it's not suspenseful. It's just kind of like, okay, I really need to talk to him.
We can use editing.
I really need to. Can you just, okay, and then he waits.
Yeah. Secretary connects.
Right.
Eventually Frank Langella comes on.
Exactly. It's like stuff like that where it just takes extra long. It's not pushing the action along. And then, like I said, but he's not getting arrested or anything, so,
Nobody will be seated during the exciting phoning Frank Langella scene.
Right. Yeah, I can see that.
But the tone is straight. So here's why. I know as a writer, many times I've tried to do crazy stuff. And sometimes you get it in, and sometimes the editor doesn't like it. And sometimes they'll say this doesn't work because it's just too bizarre. It's too wild, And this is a movie where there's kind of wildness all around, and it's presented totally straight. In other words, there are moments when real satanic stuff is going down, and the comedy, and the enjoyment comes out of just how bizarre it is that these normal everyday people are wearing satanic robes and having pentagrams and all that stuff. And here's where we get to what Drew was saying. Well, that's a rehash of Rosemary's Baby. That's exactly what Polanski was doing in Rosemary's Baby. You remember Ruth? Ruth, it was Ruth Gordon, right?
Yeah, Ruth Gordon.
Yeah, Ruth Gordon wearing her robes and all those guys, and yeah.
Now, according to the Goofs part of IMDb, the inverted pentagram only became associated with Satanism in the late 19th century. In the book, it's supposedly a 17th century Venetian binding.
That's how ahead of their time they were.
Yeah.
They had some Nostradamus kind of stuff going on where they're like, man, when people find this, when they actually are able to get Satan, we better invert this so they'll know what the heck's going on.
That's what it was. Okay.
Is it even inverted?
Sure.
I thought that was I thought it was a straight up pentagram, like a cowboy style. It wouldn't matter in the slightest.
It's so funny.
No, I don't think.
And the illustrations are actually, most of the illustrations, not all of them, are actually in the novel, the original novel.
That sounds
cool.
like a fascinating novel. This sounds like apparently the novel is even weirder because there's the one where he's looking for the ninth gate, but he's also doing other stuff, like he has to try to validate lost portions of the Three Musketeers and just crazy stuff.
Yeah, it's not called the Ninth Gate.
The Club Dumas.
Yes, right.
Yeah, Spanish book. So I may have to go looking for that. By the way, I took the assignment last week to watch to read Children of the Corn, the story. So I did that. So I'll talk about that during the endorsements.
Okay.
All right. So yes, it's a horror movie. Drew? You talked about this being a descendant, definitely, of Rosemary's Baby, and I brought out one thought. But tell me what else makes this. What stamps this as Roman Polanski for you?
Well, the look of the movie. Polanski's got a very distinct visual style. And Tony keeps talking about the breeziness of it and sort of the more. His movies do tend to take their time. Sometimes that can be good, and sometimes, I'm a fan of the Fearless Vampire Killers. I know you're not.
Hoping you were going to
I know. Yeah. I know you're not, but that, even though that's deliberately trying to sort of ape the way Hammer movies look, it still has the certain Roman Polanski-ness to it. And, this just, I'm having a hard time pinpointing it directly, but there's just certain choices.
I could try one, and you can tell me.
Well, there's a point where somebody hits Johnny Depp upside the head, and Johnny Depp's blacking out, and then he's falling towards the table where he has the book out in front of him, and then you see instead of just showing Johnny Depp's head hit the table, what you see is basically the woodcut that's in the book flying towards the camera like you are Johnny Depp about to hit your head against
but not only that, but it's a woodcut of somebody about to hit somebody. Like they have a mace.
Exactly. Yeah, that's something that Roman Polanski does. And
okay. There's one.
And there's also this. Okay, what?
Well, no, I want to throw this out there before I forget, and I apologize. But there's a moment where he's walking down an alleyway. All right, and this enormous this enormous scaffolding just starts to fall apart with pipes and glass and concrete and stuff. It just starts to collapse as he's walking by it, and he has to just sort of run by it. And when I looked at that, I have to say that didn't strike me as Roman Polanski per se, but boy, did it look like The Omen. I mean, it looked.
Except without the build-up of the Omen would have had so many cuts before that to build suspense. I think that's what's weird is and that's what's kind of strange and why I think I keep referring to it as breezy. Things just kind of happen. They just kind of flow, he's with Lena Olin, and you're like, yeah, well, awesome. And then she goes crazy and bites him, and then
that's another thing that's very Polanski is that there's a kinkiness to it.
But we go from there, and then and he makes a reference later, but then he walks outside, and then oh my God, scaffolding. But in the Omen, they would have had dun dun dun. And then a little bit more, dun, dun, dun. And then, the final one, and then you're like, oh, man, that scaffolding is going to be terrible. Mm-hmm. And, it's going to hit him.
What's this crazy trick that Polanski seems to do with speeding up the camera? Well, he has some of the weirdest sort of artistic flares.
Well, there's one scene toward the end when Johnny Depp's character has found a house where Lena Olin, who is kind of another Satan-worshipping bad guy. Well, she's the head Satan worshiper of the house. She's having this party of Satan worshippers, and they're going to try to bring Satan, whatever call him forth. And so they're all there, and Franklin Jella shows up, and he breaks up the party. And when he kind of goes to spook them all, because he kills her, he kills Lena Olin. Then he goes to spook everybody else, and he just goes boo. And it does look like the camera gets the film gets sped up a little as the people scramble away. It's almost like he was with his sheer power of his voice managed to speed them up in their hasty departure.
Yeah. You were going to say something, Drew.
It's very cartoonish, that sequence. Yeah. It's like Looney Tunes.
It reminds me of Benny Hill, in a sense. And I wonder if Polanski is playing with this, is going, hey, here's a moment where everybody was moving so fast it was like something out of a Benny Hill thing. Because they start sort of scrabbling away, and he speeds it up a little bit. And it happens actually a couple times in the movie where things move faster than they should. And that reminds me a lot of, there's a moment in Macbeth, Roman Polanski's Macbeth, where a witch just sort of randomly lifts her skirt and sort of waggles her nakedness at Macbeth just to taunt him but it's she does it in fast motion, and it's this totally crazy, weird, satanic obscenity. he likes to play with. I think that it's an attempt to unnerve us with presenting these things in a way that runs counter to the vocabulary we're accustomed to movies talking in.
Well, it's letting you know that there's something not quite right in something that's otherwise natural. Like you were talking about the twins earlier.
Yeah.
I knew there was something not quite right looking at them, but I didn't know it was a special effect.
Well, and
now
one of them is
it's
actually voiced. One of them is actually voiced by Roman Polanski to top things off.
But that's the thing.
That's fun.
It's they don't look like twins. They look so much alike. It's disconcerting.
Yeah.
And that's him sort of playing with your perspective. You're sitting there in your brain as the viewer trying to work out like something's not quite the way it should be here.
Yeah, no kidding. And what's funny is how much, I guess in a way he's challenging us, because my instinct when I'm watching a movie is to just go ahead and patch things for the director. To see something go, well, that doesn't make any sense, but I'm going to just go ahead and pretend that this was color times to match the last scene. I'm fine, And, Polanski, I think, is challenging us to go, well, you should give yourself some more credit because I'm really screwing with you a lot here.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to talk a little bit about, I know we need to talk about Johnny Depp, but before we get to Johnny Depp's character, can we talk about how awesome Frank Langella is?
Yeah.
Frank Langella plays Mr. Balkan, this extraordinarily wealthy, it's unclear, he's a lecturer, I guess he's a lecturer at the University of blah, 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 blah. But he has this hermetically sealed occult private library of rare books that's like kept behind this enormous, it's literally hermetically sealed. It's in stacks inside of a big glass enclosure, looking out on what looked to me like the fakest model skyline I've ever seen. In other words, all of the castles were totally real, but all of the city stuff appeared often to be.
That's because it's supposed to, at least the New York stuff. It wasn't in New York because Roman Polanski couldn't go to New York.
Oh, yeah.
So they had to fake New York.
Right.
But that's that part. But I don't know
but that model that he looks out on does not look like a fake New York. It looks like here, in other words, I can only assume the fakeness of that model is deliberate.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way you could film that model that close to that glass and think anybody is going to think that Langella is looking out at a real city. So
yeah.
I take it as being deliberately artificial. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe maybe this just isn't supposed to matter. But regardless, so Frank Langella is looking great. He says he patterned his character after the smarmy Claire Quilty, who he played in Lolita in 1997. If you had asked me when that Lolita came out, I would never in a million years have guessed that it was like 17 years ago. But he just played Claire Quilty, the writer. Now he's playing a very similar character. He wears these pinstripe suits. He looks very dashing and dapper, except that he has these cartoonishly large and cheap red eyeglasses that just sort of make him, that just create this sort of owl face effect. And he's really magnificent. It was kind of cool to see, one of my favorite Draculas back as what we find out is a satanic bad guy.
Oh, well, I still think, even though with the speeding up and everything, it's so cool when he just comes in, and he's like, wait, no, you guys are getting this Satanism thing just all wrong. You guys are terrible at this. You're all posers. You're just using this because it's like a eyes wide. It's supposed to be kind of an eyes wide shut kind of cult thing,
right.
And he just comes in, or Bohemia Grove, and he just comes in. And he's like, really? There's no Satan here at all. It's like the same thing we talked about last time, where it was like the Satanism of what people thought when people were playing Dungeons and Dragons versus what actually Dungeons and Dragons was,
Yes.
Which was geeking out with your friends and eating pizza or whatever, know. And so it's his thing where he's like, none of this is satanic.
Yeah,
like, come on,
they're
people.
gonna put on their robes and be naked under the robes and do some so rituals and what have you, and probably throw around some pig's blood. And he walks in wearing his awesome suit, and he's like, "You guys are total posers, and watch as I commit murder right in front of you."
Yeah, that was just
well, he
awesome.
also kind of basically tells them that they're all doing it just to get laid.
Yeah,
Which
no,
I
well,
thought was
it's supposed to be like that. Like, and they go to say that, earlier on. They're like, yeah, they get together and do kinky crap because they're rich, and that's evidently what rich people do. And if you've seen any kind of things of like Bohemia Grove or any of the things that Eyes Wide Shut was patterned after, I guess that's true, or some of it's true, whatever. But anyway, he comes into one of these things, and he's just like, I'm sorely disappointed in all of you. Like, you could be doing real Satan things, and you're doing this. Let me show you what it's really about. And that was pretty awesome, actually. Also, I liked how the women in the movie are really, I think, pretty well represented. Like, even the woman who's in a wheelchair, like, all of them are really tough. Even Lena Olin, who's satanic or whatever, she's like, hey, I'll get it on with Johnny Depp if it gets me the book, and it's Johnny Depp. Why not do this, And then, but then she, like, attacks him and everything. But all the women in it,
Lena
I thought
Olin's
were, like in retrospect, were pretty tough, and all of them were competent. Like, there were no, like, that I can remember, there were no, oh, no, I'm a woman in a horror movie kind of
There are no ingenues. So, yeah, let's talk about the girl.
Yeah, so is she, that's my question, is she, like, Satan incarnate, or is she just a demon?
You're not talking about Lena Olin now. You're talking about
the girl. That's what they actually call her.
Yeah.
Emmanuel Senior. Is she, like, supposed to be, you think she's supposed to be Satan incarnate, or is she a demon? Because she's clearly demonic, because her, she can fly downstairs like I do in my dreams sometimes. Mm-hmm. And her eyes kind of turn funky. I really thought at the end, because at the very end, Johnny Depp and her have sex, and I really thought she was going to turn into a monster, but she didn't. She just kind of got all weird-faced and glowy-eyed.
By looking at the woodcut, I think that she's with Satan. I think that was a representation of Satan because of all the heads and different stuff. And I could be wrong, but I think she's just a major demon. Mm-hmm. More than
like Satan's girlfriend.
Satan.
Kind of.
Yeah, or maybe part of the thing. Maybe it is a kind of Rosemary's Baby thing, where like maybe she's going to have Satan.
Oh, that
possibly.
Would be so cool. They never did a sequel though.
But that was
no. But that would make sense why he goes back to the castle and why she gets it on with him. And I was like, hey, that would be that would make sense in a way. So
Rosemary's Baby, yeah, right.
Well, she the way I kind of took that character, she's kind of Johnny Depp's guardian demon instead of guardian angel.
Make sure you
get that from the top. For those who are still confused, go ahead and give us like the high-level elevator pitch for what this character is, Drew.
Well, she shows up pretty much any time he's lagging behind on his search to sort of point him in a direction. Or in certain cases, because Johnny Depp's character, like we've compared him to Indiana Jones, but he's kind of a weenie. Like he doesn't like he's more
like his Secret Window character, the writer.
Like he's very bookish. He's not very good in a fight. And there's this one point where there's assassins after him, and there's this one point where the Satan cult sends their assassin after him, and she shows up and wails on this guy. And that's kind of her role, is to keep him safe and keep him on the path. After flying down the stairs, which is done in a way where you're kind of like, it's so brief, Again, Polanski's kind of messing with your perspective. You're kind of like, did I just see what I just saw?
Yeah, exactly.
See her float down the stairs like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. That was really wild. And you're like, what? And she's amazing. And then they get on a plane together. And she's totally awesome.
And she steals the Chrysler Dodge Viper, which, as IMDb points out, the brand logo of a Chrysler is a pentagram, which I hadn't noticed.
Awesome.
And the model name is Viper, of course, and then the car is red. So, that's funny. But she steals this car so they can, like, chase was it, who are they chasing? Frank Langella? I can't remember now. No.
Well, they're after. No, I think you're right.
Lena Olin. Yeah, right.
Yeah, because Lena Olin and one of her bruisers stole the book from his hotel room.
Right.
Well, it's the same guy. It's the same guy that tried to kill him. It's the black and blonde guy.
I gotta say, this movie makes. I mean, it really is. In a way, it's an old-fashioned movie that could almost have like Jimmy Stewart or something in it, because this the breeziness of it all is, even though terribly dangerous things are happening like all the time, it feels like this is the best time that Johnny Depp's character has ever had in his whole life. You know?
Yeah.
He's got his way paid. I mean, it's a fantasy for me watching it. He's got his way paid. He's going to go to all these different countries. His job is to do nothing but like look up some interesting book stuff. You know, and then he gets it on Lena Olin and the Demon Girl. Whatever.
Like it's all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hooray.
At the same time, Lena Olin did try to bite his face off, zombie style.
Yeah, and he does. I mean, he does. Wake up to a woman in a wheelchair, strangled, who then jets off into a fire.
Oh, golly.
That was a great scene. That was a good scene.
Really
First of all, this woman is missing her arm and her legs, which is just not even important to the plot. But I thought that was a really interesting choice.
Yes. And
then for the casting, and then so she's he gets knocked out while he's examining her book, which is the third book. Yeah. And so when he wakes up, he just sees that he hears this noise, this bizarre rhythmic repeating noise, and he turns around and her motorized wheelchair is just banging into the wall.
Yeah.
And then turns around, when he turns her, or when she gets turned around, when he turns around, the face, is just really gruesome.
And you know what that face reminded me of?
What?
More than anything else, it would be the lady on the sliding whatever the heck it was in House on Haunted Hill.
Yeah.
With the teeth bared and the eyes sort of
popped out. One of her eyes popped out.
Yeah.
Anyway, so once he turns her around, her wheelchair just jets off, goes through the door, and the library's on fire. So she lights on fire, and he's trying to get the book from the fire because it's there. And then he runs out, and of course runs into her secretary, at which point he should have been arrested. I mean, why the heck? And like you said, he went back to his hotel room. He's hanging out
because he's got Satan Girl looking out for him, basically.
Yeah, I guess so.
And look, if you must, I'm sure that in the universe of this, there are powerful people making all kinds of phone calls and paying people off so that his way is curled out and unmolested. And
then the Devil Girl, when Frank Langella strangles Lena Olin, Johnny Depp actually is the only person in the room who tries to stop him, and she goes, no, let him do it, and she holds him back, and then she goes, because now you won't be accused of murder because everybody saw him kill her.
Oh.
Which I thought, well, okay, at least they're going to explain that, just kind of explain that away with a brief line of dialogue.
Right.
Okay, this is why you don't get arrested. But I
which
still don't
again,
think that would have been enough.
See, and then even Langella's death, where he's like, all right, man, I've got all the Satan powers. This is, again, when it goes back to, if you're going to, it's something I've always wondered about, and I know it's a power thing, but if you're really going to say, I'm going to trust Satan, and he's going to be, the Lord of lies and stuff like that,
right.
when bad things happen, why does nobody expect that?
I know. I know.
In the same way, I think I can't remember if I told you on this. One time I was at a gig and some guy gave us a spell. It's one of the weirdest things I've ever gotten at a gig. This guy told us he loved our music. So I was in this industrial band, and he gave us a spell and said, if we had all these runes, and he spelled out, and he was like, if you need help, burn this. And I was like, and I got this, and I'm looking at it. And I'm talking to my roommate, and I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm burning this. I've seen enough horror movies to know better. How do I know that guy's legit? And if I'm going to trust why would I trust dark powers? This wasn't a thing where he was like, and this will summon some angels,
Yeah,
there's no
hilarious.
way. There's no way I'm burning that thing. Given to me by some, really, Anton LaVey looking dude who was there with, tattoos across his head. And he looked cool, and interesting, but, you know, and he was really into this, you know, our band that night. But, yeah, I don't ever know what happened to that spell. I gave it to my roommate. I don't know what happened to it. It'd be really crazy if it just kept turning up in my, like, at the bottom of boxes wherever I moved. I expect that to happen. But, yeah, there was no way. There's no way I'm burning that thing.
That's so funny.
You know?
Well,
because I've seen it, I'm like, this never turns out well for anybody who does this.
No.
Well, I mean, you might believe that your Satan powers have made you vulnerable, but I truly don't think I would immediately test it by pouring a can of gasoline over my head.
Well, so yeah, I was going to say. So Tony alludes to Frank Langella's. I've got the Satan powers. So the deal is that the magical Satan calling power will come if you collect all the 9 drawings that Satan actually did in these books. And so it's not just one book that's the Ninth Gate. It's
you have to collect them all.
3 books. Yeah, it's to collect them all. It's like McDonald's
Pokemon.
or something.
Yeah. It's like the devil's Pokemon.
Devil's Pokemon. And so you have to collect all the original Satan drawings from each of these 3 books. And so he thinks he's done it, Frank Langella, and so he gathers them and he goes to this castle that's, you know, this is where you're supposed to go. And he says, I've got the power now because I have these things. So obviously I have it. And so he goes, like he does, he lights this circle of fire, and he goes, look, I can like put my hands in the fire and it doesn't do anything. And Johnny Depp, he's had this battle with Johnny Depp, but he has not killed him because I love James Bond. He's like, I'm just gonna let you watch. So he's like, Johnny Depp's in there, and he goes, yeah, do more stuff like that. So funny. He's like, you know, show us more of that or something.
Pretty impressive. You got another one?
You got any more? Right. And so then he goes, okay. And so he covers himself in gasoline. He lights himself on fire, starting with his legs. And he's like, I don't feel anything. And then suddenly he's like, crap.
Yeah. Oops. I have made a mistake. I like the mystery and how it plays out of all the different books. Like, there's not just that you have to compare the books, but once you start finding out that you need pieces from all 9 books, and you need to not only that, but you need to figure out which ones are the right ones. That's really cool. Like, I really like that mystery. I thought it was a good idea. Like, I thought that was pretty awesome. Now, I didn't get exactly how he had figured out, like, okay, and part of it had to do with the chant that he was saying, but I don't know, it took me a little bit to get, like, I was like, well, how does he know, like, use page 2 from book 9 and page 5 from book 7? Right. And, you know, because am I the only one? Like,
I think it has to do with
what
they all say. I mean, I think they all say something. Like because it's kind of a story. Like it says the complete engraving. This is from IMDb. Complete engraving titles in the ninth gate are as follows: number 1, silence is golden. Number 2, they open that which is closed. It's all Latin. 3 is
because he's saying it when he's putting them all out.
So I think he's reading them. Yeah, I think he's reading what the things are. Fate is not the same for all of us. In vain, and it's like in the order or whatever. I am enriched by death. The disciple surpasses the master. Virtue lies defeated, and now I know that from darkness comes light. So he does all those, but the thing is, as we're told by the devil girl, he has one of them is a forgery. One of them's not the right one. So that's why it doesn't work. And so then she, for whatever reason, she's decided now to get behind Johnny Depp's, case or whatever. So she's like, I want you to find the real one. So I'm gonna tell you where it is. And so somehow she or somebody else has laid the sheet on top of a bookshelf in this little bookstore that's no longer that's being emptied for whatever reason. And so these mover guys are moving this big case, and they flip it, they turn it over, and the sheet just floats to the ground. And again, like I said, those 2 guys are the same one actor. Anyway, so then he's like, oh, I guess this is it. So now he has it. So you can go back to the castle, at which point, he's going to, that's what we don't know. He's like, because the castle with the 9 pages, and now it's just a fade to light.
Since it's that picture of her with the demon, we can almost guarantee. I mean, I kind of like it that it ends in a mystery, because it could have gone for a lot of movies. A lot of movies would be like, oh, You mean we need a third ending? Let's have a third ending. Because even though it is
but this
kind of,
is a movie
it's
does
still like,
not actually have an ending.
No,
yeah,
you're right.
I think that I was actually really fine with it ending the way it, like being ambiguous that way.
I was mad. I told Jason, I'm like, that sucks.
No, I was cool with that because I think no matter what they no matter what they showed you, like what would you have been better off if she had been like, hey, and here's some exposition where I tell you all about how I'm pregnant now and you're Satan's daddy.
But
like,
I want to see him making some kind of, like, we've spent all this time, and as I said, this movie feels like it's 4 hours long, building up to nothing.
See, I disagree.
Nothing.
I disagree that it happens when you're like, oh man, he didn't really summon Satan. Johnny Depp sees the thing. They could have ended it there, and maybe they should have. But when he sees the thing, like, I think leaving it open to what exactly he sees, I can almost guarantee you, if they had done the thing like where like the end of Lord of the Rings or any other movie, we've seen tons of them on this podcast.
Well, it would involve
where they have a final, like the 50th ending where you're just like, and this happens, and then here's the thing.
I didn't need three endings. I didn't need three endings. I needed one. This movie doesn't have an ending. I'm okay with a vague ending. I'm okay with a vague ending. Like, John Carpenter does vague endings all the time, and he does them very well. This movie did not.
What's wrong? I mean, him going back to the castle to discover what was at the castle, that's not
Well, he'd have to do the ritual. I mean, so if he's going back to the castle, it means he has to do the whole Franklin Jello ritual himself.
But we don't know that.
We don't know that ritual actually does anything, because the fact is it doesn't work.
We don't even...
My thing is,
I think that she's there. But what happens then, I don't know. And I'm fine with that.
No, what's ironic is that Franklin Jello, like you said, is calling them posers. Like, he didn't call them that, but, he's saying that you guys don't know what you're doing, and then he doesn't know what he's doing either. So really, I think all it is you have to have the 9 pages and be at the castle, and maybe you have to have Devil Girl with you.
Well, I mean, since when does Johnny Depp want Satan power? I mean, that's
kind of hard to believe too. He seems to kind of start to want it, but we don't.
That's why I don't think that's going to happen. See, this is why, like, I'm fine with the movie that leaves debate like this. Like, there's been other movies where I was like, you cannot, like, really, we don't get an ending. Like, I can see why even people were mad about Barbarian Sound Studio because it just kind of ends, and I can understand why people were mad about that.
That's a weird one, man.
However, this one, like, I'm fine with him going back to discover whatever that is, and we don't see that. But I don't think he's even going to get the Satan powers. And on the other hand, again, Frank Langella burning up, like, again, like, I see time and time again, and I know, real Satanism, like Satanism in the real world isn't like movie Satanism, but, like, again, I go, why would you, like, time and time again, if you trusted, like, the way movies do, why would you trust him? Like, he's more than willing to let your sorry butt, like, just, like, oh, man, you thought you knew me. Look, I let you burn up.
The fact that Johnny Depp starts wanting to do, like, it does, that was one thing that I thought was a little inconsistent out of his character.
Yeah.
Like, basically up until the point where suddenly he's like, hey, I'm all down with worshiping the devil and finishing this ritual. Like, he doesn't seem, he seems to be like, well, I'm really only, he's a mercenary. It's like, I'm really only in this for the money.
I could see him being Indiana Jones-ish and just wanting to solve the mystery and find the last piece. Also,
yeah,
so here's the question.
I thought that's how it was.
Try this out. Would it have been a sufficient ending for you? Let's say he kind of solves this mystery where Frank Langella tries the ritual, sets himself on fire, dies. Johnny Depp gets away. He has sex with Satan Girl, and then we leave with the possibility that Satan Girl is pregnant with the devil himself, and that's your ending. And then we leave off all the rest of this crap with getting.
I would have been okay with that.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of feel like this last bit. I'm okay with where it went, but I could have lost the last 20 minutes, and I would have felt like we had a more.
No, it's fine. What I'm saying is, with the fact that it did have an extra, like, coda, which was kind of unnecessary, like, hey, I found that page. That was crazy. Like, him going back. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm fine with him going, and because he sees the picture and it's her on top, with Satan. He says, wow, that's the castle. Oh, how did I not notice that? And he's going back to discover whatever the heck is going to happen. You know, I'm guessing they maybe wanted a sequel, or I just didn't, like, to me, I've seen a lot of movies where I was really mad when it ended, and this, for me, it kind of worked, but obviously I'm in the minority.
No,
like, I don't have a problem
enjoyed it well.
I don't have a problem with that, but I think, it didn't need the coda, that's for sure. Like, I can agree with you there, like, finding that extra page of, it's like, and here's the twist.
I think it would have been more interesting, actually, if the twist had not been that the ninth page was a forgery, but rather that Frank Langella was not meant to have this power, and so it just doesn't work because of who he is.
He's just rejected.
That would have been cool, too. I would have liked that. That's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah, I would have been okay with that as well.
Yeah.
Like, pretty much I would have liked just about anything better than what we got. Like,
Weird.
I just, yeah.
Well, remember, I've totally hated films that we've watched where others were like, I think you're being harsh on this movie. Yeah.
I like this movie. I just didn't like the ending.
I don't hate the movie. I wish there are a couple of things about it that I wish they could have tightened up the pace a little bit, and I wish that it was about 20 to 30 minutes shorter, and I wish it had a better ending.
I wouldn't want it to be shorter. I would just want it to have more, like a little bit less of the kind of waiting around, and a little bit more like, Johnny Depp's about to be arrested or something, that kind of thing. Like just another action scene or something instead of so much.
Yeah, well, they could have had more mystery stuff. If they had less talking on the phone.
Right.
And more kind of solving, being,
Oh my gosh! How many times did he go? Where are you? What are you here? Where are you?
Yeah, that's stuff that didn't need to be in the movie, and I feel like if you cut that out, you probably would at least lose 15 minutes.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's a really good point. All right, so let's do, just like with the first impression, let's do a really quick closing impressions, and then get to some endorsements. What orders? Let's go, Julia, Tony, Drew, and then I'll go, and then let's come around for endorsements. So, Julia, elevator pitch.
So
Final thoughts.
I think I like the Roman Polanski touches. I love the fact that it's in Europe. I love the sets. I love the castle set is gorgeous. I like Paris, so I love that Paris is in there. I mean, it's a neat looking movie, and I think it's well acted. I think it's well cast. So yeah, aside from the couple things that we've mentioned, it was really awesome.
Very cool. Tony, final thoughts?
I like the movie. Again, I always feel bad because some people it's always dangerous when people tell you about your own work. It's good, but I didn't really remember it. Like, it's just nice, breezy, fare. And in some ways, that's kind of the worst thing if you don't leave a lasting impression, because even if people hate it, like, at least you burned yourself into their psyche.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, this is kind of like that. But I enjoyed it. Like, I remember liking it more than I had thought. And then, it was fun. It kind of clips along. Good acting, cool characters, some good action sequences. I don't know. I dug it. Is it something I'll revisit a ton? Maybe not, but it's solid. Even though it feels like an earlier '90s movie for a lot of those reasons. When I was just renting like anything I could on from the video store, like it kind of has that feeling. And maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's the nostalgia that I like. But I enjoyed it. So.
Excellent. Drew, so those are two positives. Give us your quick spin.
I hate to be the one that sounds the most negative because I really didn't hate. Children of the Corn, I just ended up outright hating. Like I didn't hate this. I think that it's a very, very accomplished film from one of our more famed directors, and certainly nothing to be ashamed of, but it was dull at times, and I wish it was I wish the pace was better. I mean, that's really the only real complaint I have about it, I guess, in the ending. But, is it worth watching? Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, it'd be good in a if you were to watch this and Angel Heart back to back, I think they'd make a good double feature. It fits very nicely in the sort of genre of satanic horror films with, The Omen and Rosemary's Baby and The Exorcist, and Angel Heart. And this fits very.
Heart's a great idea.
Yeah, this fits very well within that. And is it the best movie out of that genre? No, but it's not the worst. So, I mean, that's all I got, I guess.
Very good, very good. I thought it was definitely too long. I would have tightened it up because this movie in many ways reminded me of the kind of movie that gets made like for Swedish or French TV, and so you might really enjoy it, but nobody's ever going to put it on their top 10 of the year list. I found it very enjoyable, beautiful to look at, wonderful, wonderful scenery, and some crazy elements. Does it completely hang together? I don't know. If you sliced out again, if you sliced half an hour out of it, it would not miss anything. So I recommend it, but everything that everybody said is totally true, and I agree with you. It would be really kind of awesome to watch it back to back with Angel Heart. I think that would be brilliant.
Also, I still go back to the fact that it's all of the women in it. I think are really strong and cool, no matter which side of the whole thing they're on. I really
an amazing action hero. I mean, she's cool. He has his own personal devil girl bodyguard, and that's really awesome.
Yeah, I think I was, it's something I've been kind of, paying attention to lately just because, and I thought I was really impressed with just how, I love when she realizes who, why am I drawing a blank? The woman in the wheelchair realizes who Johnny Depp's working for. She's like, get the hell out.
Yes.
She's going to be cordial to him. She's kind of annoyed that he's there, because she's evidently had some dealings with, crazy business, just from her look and demeanor. And so, I thought that was pretty cool. I thought everybody was pretty awesome.
There are some really neat characters here. That's true. And, I am not a fan of The Fearless Vampire Killers, which is Polanski's work, which Drew has great admiration for. And that one didn't work for me, whereas this one did work better for me. So, go figure. Okay, let's get to endorsements. We can go in the same direction. First let me mention that next week we're going to continue our horror on Netflix. We're going to take a break from the recommendations of the universe because we have an opportunity here in Denver to go watch Tales from the Dark Side. So considering that it's on Netflix for streaming, so it's easy for everybody to listen to, we're going to talk Tales from the Dark Side. So that's going to be awesome. All right, endorsements. Where did we go? Did we start with Julia? Who did we start with?
You started with me. I don't really have anything right now. Let me think about it. So go ahead and go to whoever else wants to.
All right. Drew, do you have anything to endorse?
Oh, I have a lot of stuff to endorse.
I'll cede my time to Drew.
Okay. First off, Tony and I had the privilege to go to a top secret screening of Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and I just can't say enough good things about this movie. I really liked the first one. I thought it was a very good synthesis of Golden Age and Silver Age. Captain America had a very strong, Jack Kirby sensibility to it, and I really, really liked that about it. This sort of does the same thing with a lot of Bronze Age Captain America and modern Captain America storylines, and weaves them into this conspiracy theory genre. And it's just this is the first Marvel movie I would actually say is on par with The Dark Knight. It's that good.
It's awesome. There's been a lot of Ain't It Cool News screenings that Harry has hosted, and I'm always holy crap, I hope I get in. And this one, the fact that Drew and I both got to go together and watch this new Marvel movie and then have it be that freaking good. Wow.
It's truly
it's so good.
And I have to give so much props to Marvel because, you know, it seems like, you know, with characters that are of the same era as Captain America is, there's this real urge right now to sort of try to turn them into more of an anti-hero or whatever. They deepen the character without sacrificing who he is, and that was very admirable. And I also want to point out that with the choreography, the sort of fight choreography, while I liked the Avengers and I liked the first Captain America film, I never thought that they got the way the character should move right. They really, really nailed it in this. I mean, it's just so good. And, you know, strong performances by all of the cast. Robert Redford is awesome.
Oh, yeah. It also made me sad, though, because there's a poster that the cast and crew got that's very much like, you know, like old school poster art. And I'm so sad that poster isn't readily available. I mean, I guess you could, you know, do the thing where you print it out yourself or whatever, but like that poster is awesome. And if you see it around, like online, just look at it.
They did sort of retro poster for the first Captain America too, and I guess they you know, Marvel realizes that there's an inherent appeal to, of that aspect of the character.
But this is the new, like, having like Redford there, it looked like a movie from the 70s.
Yeah.
Robert Redford would be in, and that, oh man, they nailed it so well, and it just feels that way. And I'm not even the biggest Captain America fan, but like, it's my favorite Marvel movie, like hands down, blows everything away. I don't mean to go to hyperbole, but it was consistently people clapping, going, yes, that thing I know and love is here. Like, all of it was there on display, and man, oh man.
Without, you know, as somebody that has read a lot of Captain America comics, I just have to say, and without giving too much away, Batroc the Leaper.
Yes.
That made me so happy. The other thing, though, I have to get in a couple of plugs here. First off, go to the Comixology website. The very first MonsterVerse Halloween Man release is up there. It is a re-release of the crossover with Hack Slash. So if you have not read that, it's on there. It's only $1.99 for 60 pages. So you're getting a good value. It's got great art. You know, it's one of the best. I can honestly say, out of our back library, it's one of the best things that we've ever done. And you know, I was happy that we were able to kick off this thing with that. The first issue of the new ongoing is going to be on Comixology in April, and I will get the exact date as soon as I can. But please go, not only check it out on Comixology, but please also let people know about it. You know, because if this does well on Comixology, we will be bringing the character back into print. But, you know, that's going to take fans getting behind this character yet again. And I can't say or stress that enough. I also have to plug Jamie's band, my wife's band, Danger Cakes, was in the current issue of Playboy Mexico, which I finally got to see, even though I can't read it because I don't speak really good Spanish. They're not naked.
Yeah, if you scan the whole thing for me and send it to me, I'll translate it for you, Drew.
We may end up having to do that. You know, they're not naked for all you perverts out there. It's not like that. It's an interview. It's a legitimate interview. They have articles. Hello, but
that's why people read Playboy magazine.
Mm-hmm.
It's for the articles. But it's just cool to know that they're in such a big magazine. You know, after knowing how hard these ladies have all worked for the past maybe 4 years at this point. You know, they're finally kind of doing it and doing it up big, and I'm just very proud of them. So
awesome.
yeah, if you speak Spanish or just want an excuse to buy a Mexican issue of Playboy, you can get it online.
That's really wonderful. That's really great news. So congratulations to Jamie.
Thank you.
Tony, did you have any endorsements?
I have a couple. Of course, going to see Cap 2 with Drew was awesome. And, I also say don't watch any more trailers or anything. Like, just go enjoy that film when it comes out. Like, you'll be happier. I tried to avoid it as well, and everything was a blast.
I already did your endorsements, didn't I? I apologize. I wasn't trying to make...
No. Right. And then also, not to steal any thunder from Drew, but Psychom, the book Jason and I wrote, is on Comixology, which we found out like last week or two. It wasn't graphically, and so if you're, there seems to be a graphically camp and a Comixology camp.
Yeah.
And so, if you're part of the Comixology camp, you can now get Psychom if you're wanting it in digital format.
Yeah.
And then also, I'm part of the Draft House Alliance, which is like a, Time Life for any of those, or the old, CD subscription services, but much cooler, where you can join the Draft House Films Alliance and you get sent their DVDs or Blu-rays or whatever, format of your choice, as well as some perks and stuff. And they sent me one of their latest releases, which was Miss 45 or MS 45, and rape revenge thriller, crazy. These days I can do with less of the rape part of rape revenge thrillers. But it's done really well, and the print looks awesome on Blu-ray, and there's some really good extras. So if you're out and about, it'll probably show up. I mean, they've consistently, Draft House Films stuff has shown up on Netflix, but it doesn't look as good as the Blu-ray. Maybe it does if you have a super crazy good connection, but I've never seen a stream that looks as good as a Blu-ray. So Miss 45, or I don't know if it's Miss or if they say MS 45, but it's pretty great. It's of a time, but it's classic. Like I was really pleasantly surprised. And I have their release of The Visitor, which is horror, so I should probably watch that and see if it's cool enough to endorse. But I've heard really, really good things about The Visitor, so.
Very cool. All right. I have two things. First of all, I've been kind of re-exploring MST3K lately, so I watched the Riff Tracks version of Night of the Living Dead and the Riff Tracks version of Plan 9 from Outer Space, and they were both, like, fantastic. If you've seen Night of the Living Dead or Plan 9 from Outer Space and you're looking for an excuse to watch them again, you should totally get the DVD versions from Riff Tracks, which is basically the MST3K clan, and they do their entire riffing shtick on those two movies, and it is really wonderful. So that was a good weekend. In fact, MST3K is coming back. If you're a fan, April 1, they're going to be doing a whole evening of riffing on Nat Geo for some reason, and they'll be riffing on Nat Geo programming. So, I don't have much interest, particularly in the programming that they're doing. Honey badgers, unlikely animal friends, man versus monster, swamp men, and alpha dogs. But they'll be making fun of them. So that sounds fantastic. And so that's on April 1. So Mike Nelson and the MST3K guys are actually going to come back for this event on Nat Geo, and that sounds cool. And that's it. You guys had some fantastic endorsements, so I will leave it at check out MST3K and go there. So I really appreciate you guys being on. If anybody's listening, guys and gals, like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on iTunes, leave comments, debate with us, make suggestions, make complaints. We will totally listen and get involved in whatever debates you want to scare up. So Have a fantastic week, and we'll be back next week with Tales from the Dark Side. Thanks, everybody.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
All right.
See ya.